Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone, who are teaching the truth and sincerity. And a shout out to Yakim and Yakwath that are listening. For you, I say Shalom. Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Brakat them. So, taking a look about what's been going on, because, of course, you don't hear about this in the mainstream, but what's going on, the reason they're about to do a false flag, or at least I've been trying to do a false flag with the white helmets, is because, of course, Syria is regaining ground against the terrorists. That's why you're starting to hear about Gomer and all his bands, because they don't like it that Syria is advancing. In fact, Gomer is now threatening to attack Syria. So anyways, here's a little bit of what's going on with the Syrian War Report as I take a look at the end-time events here, and Damascus being a big part of end-time prophecy. Slovakia. Alright, here we go.
On December 26th, units of the Syrian army liberated the villages of Kuwain al-Shar, Judaidat Nawaf, Samke, and Dilim, as well as several nearby points in southern Idlib. During the past few days, the speed of the Syrian army advance in the region decreased in comparison to the first few days of the operation, which was launched on December 19th. This is linked to the ongoing behind-the-scenes negotiations on the fate of Marat al-Numan and bad weather. Taking into account reports that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and its allies rejected a surrender proposal from Damascus, a new round of full-scale hostilities will likely take place soon. According to pro-militant media outlets, up to 200 members of militant groups were killed or injured since December 19th. At the same time, they claim an even bigger number of casualties among Syrian army troops. Both of these numbers seem to be overestimated. Early on December 26, at least 85 Turkish military vehicles and trucks entered the greater Idlib region in northwestern Syria, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the SOHR. The SOHR claimed that a portion of the vehicles were headed towards a Turkish observation post near the town of Al-Ais in southwestern Aleppo, while the remainder moved to a second observation post in the district of Al-Rashidin, west of Aleppo's city center. Earlier, on December 2nd, about 100 Turkish military vehicles entered Greater Idlib. They were intended for observation posts in southern Idlib and northwestern Hama. Ankara is once again intensifying its diplomatic, propaganda, and even military efforts in order to rescue radical groups operating in northwestern Syria.
So you have that going on while Russia is also establishing a base inside Syria, and here's some footage that I was able to get of that as well. You know, while still, waiting to get my next place next week, which I can't wait for, but, still paying attention to what's going on, trying to update. So here's more developments in Syria. Of course, like I said, I have a strike on my main channel and can't upload new videos to that, but still at least trying to get on my backup channels. So yeah, Russia, aka Magog, is setting up their base there. So, pretty much though, the oil, some oil shipments have actually been stopped going into Gomer due to the new developments. So, of course, Magog's in the middle between Gomer and Syria, because they're negotiating with both. And Magog's doing what they have to do to be a guard now onto all these places. Yep, searching for mines, anything else left by the United States. And of course, one more here, getting into this. Okay, there it is. I'm making sure that this is recording. So anyhow, this is also going on here. Like I said, Gomer is threatening direct conflict with Syria.
Late on December 23rd, the Turkish-based Syrian interim government, an entity funded by Turkey in an attempt to legalize its actions in Syria, threatened the real Syrian government with a military action. In a release statement, it claimed that forces that participated in Turkey's Olive Branch and Euphrates Shield operations are now moving to Greater Idlib in order to support their counterparts in repelling an attack by regime forces, Russia and Iranian militias. It remains unclear what forces the barely existing defense ministry is planning to send to Idlib, because Turkish-backed militant groups are already supporting Al-Qaeda-linked Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in the battle against the Syrian army. The Turkish-backed coalition of militant groups, the National Front for Liberation, has always been a useful partner for Al-Qaeda in Idlib. On December 24th, United Forces of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the National Front for Liberation, and several other militant groups launched a counterattack in an attempt to retake the town of Jarnaz from the Syrian army and its allies. Clashes between militant groups and government forces erupted near Jarnaz itself and the villages of Gadfa and Abud Dawa. Militants used at least one suicide vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. Pro-militant sources reported that rebels destroyed several pieces of military equipment belonging to the army and captured an armored vehicle and a battle tank. The fighting in the area continued on December 25th. On December 24th, a Turkish delegation visited Moscow to discuss the situation in Syria and Libya, as well as the existing bilateral cooperation. Taking into account that Turkey's soft reaction to the encirclement of its observation post in Surman and the lack of Turkish army attempts to establish more observation posts to stop the Syrian army advance, it seems that Ankara once again sold out its Idlib proxies to Russia.
Continuing on, of course, I wasn't able to pull it up here, but as you know, Syria was also bombed over so-called Christmas, which, all these pagan holidays are celebrated all around the world. They were bombed just, a couple days ago by Israeli state, Amalek, yours truly, the least of the flock, drawing everybody into this war, and of course saying that they're going after Hezbollah, all the same bullshit as before. It's nothing more than fucking bullshit, as well as I do. That's because Syria has been resistant to the New World Order, and the New World Order, aka Amalek, wants total control. And Gomer is with them, so you got Gomer and all his bands over there as well as everything else. So there's even more going on that I was able to pull up here. The Turkish occupation enters dozens of terrorist mercenaries with their families to house them in the houses of the people in Ras Al Ain. The Turkish occupation forces have introduced a new batch of terrorist mercenaries and their families to the occupied city of Ras Al Ain to house them in the homes of the city of indigenous people, whom they have expelled since the beginning of its aggression on Syrian soil last October. So, of course, they're kicking the people out, which is what caused the Syrian refugee crisis to begin with. They were kicked out, and these terrorists, these goddamn fucking gutter rats, because that's who Gomer and all his bands are, these fucking gutter rats, Amalekites, are moving in, just like what they're fucking doing in Palestine. Which we know that these bastards dwell in Ashdod. A Syrian Arab news agency reporter quoted local sources as saying that the Turkish occupation forces entered this morning 5 buses from Turkish lands with dozens of their mercenaries and their families to live in the southern neighborhoods of the city from which people were displaced from the terrorism of the Turkish occupation forces and its mercenaries. So you can see how Gomer pretty much serves Amalek, because Gomer is Amalek. You see how they all work together? Not all Amalekites claim to be Jewish. A lot of them claim Islam, which all that is just a front. Because let's face it, Judaism is nothing more than converts, is nothing more than a religion, same as Islam. And yeah, you got 2/3 of our people fucking joining Islam as well. I'm not saying all 2/3 are joining Islam, but a good portion of the 2/3 is in Islam. Over the past weeks, the Turkish occupation forces have introduced hundreds of mercenary terrorist organizations with their families to the villages areas they occupied in the countryside of Hasaka, Aleppo, and Raqqa. In the context of the process of abandonment and demographic change, to exert pressure and intimidation of the people to force them to leave their homes and lands and displace them from the area and empty them of their people and the replacement of terrorists and their families. Same thing they did here in this piece of shit America. So, I say this to all those that fucking are joined with Esau, you're going to die like an Edomite. And pretty much I'll try and be back later as I can. As you know, it's very hard to get out on the internet, but I'm doing what I possibly can to still, do what I must, even though I'm only on a backup channel. For that, I want to say Brakat the Yahweh, Brakat the Yahweh Shai, Bashim Rakakadash, Brakatum, and hopefully I'll be back later. Shalom.